Hello. Walking and talking. I'm kind of looking for my sunglasses on the ground as I walk because I lost them, and so I'm wearing these things. In the meantime, I have this eye sensitivity issue from too much screen time. I want to talk about humility. What is humility? What is the point? What is the benefit? Grace, tenderness. Humility is the acquiescence of the body to consciousness. When we're holding the body rigid, in protection, we're protecting ourselves from the truth. We're protecting ourselves from something we don't need protection from. So that's arrogance. We have this we have these deeply formed shells, internal shells, which are arrogance. And this causes us to be sick. This causes us to be fat. This causes us to be confused. This causes us to be ineffective. It goes on and on. Literally, all of human problems, if you want to call it that, come from this deeply held arrogance. It's this deep pushing against the truth instead of letting it penetrate us because of the pain we would have to come into contact with. So we're avoiding feeling. And I am very familiar with this from personal experience. Avoiding feeling. Whether we are storytellers or working in any job, everybody has the capacity to be a healer, a guide, a friend, a parent. Everybody has the capacity for wisdom. And wisdom is not owned by any particular person. It's simply the result of humility. You can't have wisdom without humility. The more humility somebody has, the more space they have for power. They can't trust themselves with power without humility. The most powerful people I know are the most humble people that I know. If a film is made from a place of humility, it's going to have more of a nuance to it. Only humility can perceive nuance. Nuance of feeling, nuance of speaking, nuance of relating. In a film scene, there might be 200 things happening at once, that we could like name and identify. And it takes humility to perceive those. The less humility someone has, the more arrogance someone has, the less that movie scene is going to penetrate their perception. And then it's going to come off as boring. It's like, oh, that is a boring scene. I didn't like, why didn't they just cut that scene out? Get to the fight scene that's coming up next. Meanwhile, I'm making myself sick with my arrogance and my Doritos. And I'm completely casting aside any potential for real intimacy between, me, if I'm watching a movie, me and the filmmaker, me and the scene, me and myself. Intimacy is nuance. The availability for intimacy is humility. Pushing away intimacy is arrogance. You see where I'm going with this? This is not that, like, we're not that different. This isn't complicated. As I say, it's simple, but it's not easy. Because we come up with all of these stories, all this rationale. Here's why I can't let this in right now. Reminds me of a experience I had. A Kundalini awakening experience, if you are familiar with the Kundalini energy. I had this Kundalini experience where the energy was coming up. If you're not familiar with Kundalini energy, it's basically like the essence of the earth, spirit energy that's usually stored at the base of our spine. This is what's represented by the serpent in the Bible talking to Eve. So that whole thing, that whole story has been misunderstood by Christians because they made the serpent evil. Actually, Kundalini is knowledge. Kundalini is knowledge of this plane. And someone with knowledge can appear evil to someone without. They can appear crazy to someone without. Someone with knowledge is someone with humility. Isn't that interesting? Someone who's arrogant would perceive someone who has humility as being evil. I fell into this trap so many times. I fell into this trap like a week ago. It just keeps going. We just keep clearing stuff out because the human experience has been infiltrated. The human experience has been very tainted and distorted. We have to keep very vigilant in order to see anything close to reality, and we also have to stay humble, knowing that we're not actually perceiving reality. With awakening, we don't get to perceive reality as it is. We get to perceive that we don't know what reality is. We get to perceive that we'll never get the full reality, or it would just tear us apart. There's too much energy coming at us all the time. We can't do it. But what we can perceive ultimately is the reality of ourselves, and that is within our wheelhouse. But there's more to know than we can ever know. Being okay with that is humility. We're not trustworthy with power unless we can perceive that we don't know everything. You see how tricky this is? This is all counterintuitive. It's not like you wake up into enlightenment and then you just know everything and all your questions are answered. You get more questions. Life becomes more interesting. And you can also answer your own questions. You can ask your question, and then you can answer the question. And so it creates this process of converting the unknown into the known, which is the process of becoming available to power. But the unknowable stays the unknowable. That's why it's the unknowable. So when we can have humility to the unknowable, we start to become trustworthy with power. And then power will have its way with us. We'll always be inundated with a little bit more than we can handle, because our nervous system is continually designed to just keep on growing, keep on getting more and more refined. We don't want it to stop. It doesn't need to stop. But the persona resisting the process, that's what stops. The arrogance, that's what stops. The mind chatter trying to escape the moment, that's what stops. The unavailability stops. The self-righteousness, the self-importance, and the self-pity. If it doesn't stop, at least we're not taking it seriously anymore. We're not buying into it. We're not feeding it. And because we have withdrawn its food supply, eventually it stops. It gets starved to death. And what takes its place is will. I believe, as a filmmaker, if I am creating something, it should be designed to increase the will of my audience. I believe it should be designed to both soften where there's unhelpful rigidity and harden where there's unhelpful passivity. I made a whole video about this You can look back. I think it's called spiritual softness and rigidity. We've got things backward, right? That is the mind virus of humanity. That is the arrogance of humanity. People are so convinced. I was so convinced. Even like I said, last week, there was something I was so convinced of until it comes to the surface, and then I do my work. I, put my head down and stay with it to the bitter end until I could see. And then I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I did not know. I was infected with a distorted lens. I did not know. I was trying to get other people to buy into a faulty paradigm, an unhelpful, disempowering paradigm. It's not like I was always doing that, but I got into this mood which called forth the activation of that mind virus, which was the arrogance. And I could always feel it in my belly as this tension, but I didn't know what it was. I couldn't identify it. I could see it was not active, but I was watching to see when it would be active, but I wasn't watching closely enough because I believed it for, let's say, a good 48 hours before it was kind of wrestled and handled. Fortunately, I didn't hurt anybody, or I had to press block on my messaging so I wouldn't send any harmful messages during this period, because I could see something was moving. In order to clear it, I had to go through several things. I had to really stack the odds in my favor. I had to let out a lot of emotion. I had to ask for help. Takes humility. I had to sit in the discomfort until the bubble was popped and I no longer identified with it. That's the bubble of arrogance that gets popped. Most people are not interested in doing this, right? It feels like dying. It feels like this is wrong. It feels like I can't. It feels like this seems absolutely impossible, what is being asked of me. The squirming and writhing, thrashing, wriggling, trying to get out of that. That's why they say the only way out is through. It's really true. We have to swallow not like physically swallow, but energetically, we have to swallow a bigger reality. We have to expand our energetic capacity. Our being becomes bigger, wider, more. We can hold more. We can accommodate more. And that gives us the power to see more deeply. Seeing with a capital S means we can use our vision to pierce false worlds. We can use our vision to pierce all the mind viruses and all the shenanigans of arrogance for ourselves, for other people, and then moving between these worlds, it requires the lightest footsteps so that we're not captured in that world. And I don't mean this like you're going to a different dimension and you like can't find Earth. I mean literally, like you can enter into somebody's distorted way of viewing the world, and you could be making a concession for the fact that they believe that that world is real because it's based on arrogance, but they believe it's real. So you can be basically acting as if it's real in order to draw them back to reality. But in that process, they could latch on to you as an attacker because you are attacking that false world. You're attacking that false narrative. And if they're identified with it, it feels like they are being attacked. That's what happened with me. I felt like I was being attacked. I literally thought I was being bullied, and I was actually the bully. It's a trip how this works. We get totally sidetracked to see what is the most convenient. Destroying worlds is not convenient if we're attached to them. It doesn't come across as convenient. And again, it's easy. I'm sorry, it's simple, but it's not easy. It's the more hooks it has in us, the harder it feels. It doesn't mean it's actually difficult. It acts as if it's difficult because there's a bunch of hooks in us of that world emotionally. It feels like if I give this space, I'm gonna get taken advantage of. If I give this space, I'm going to lose my family, I'm going to lose my home, I'm going to lose my business, whatever. But all we're actually afraid of losing is the world that we're stuck on. All we're afraid of losing is the identity that's creating hell for us. And we imagine, if I lose this identity, obviously people aren't even realizing it's an identity when they're having this experience, but people imagine they're losing something that they're not losing. It seems too risky. People think that what they're losing is real, but what they're losing is not real. What I lost in this last one, what I lost in actuality was a constant tension in my belly. What I lost was arrogance and an assumption of superiority. What I lost was my sunglasses. So if you see them, please let me know. Every moment is so precious. One of my favorite quotes, "There's no ordinary moments," by Dan Millman. Every moment is so precious. And if we cannot perceive it that way, we are in arrogance. So what does that say about the world? How much arrogance is there if we're not perceiving the preciousness of every single moment? I'm gonna walk over here to see if I left my sunglasses over here. Oh, there's a dog leash. And there's a balance beam. I'm gonna balance on this as I talk to you. See if I can show you. Not really. There we go. Whoa! If we're trying to escape something, if we're trying to escape a moment, if we're trying to hurry a process along, if we're trying to fix ourselves, if we're being violent toward ourselves, if we're being violent toward the moment, it's all arrogance. Getting our asses handed to us is the best thing that could happen. Here's your ass, sir, madam. You're welcome. Would you like fries with that? Grasping is happening because we think what we're looking for is real, and we think the one who's grasping is real. What if everything's all right? I had a friend in high school I kind of adopted his slogan that I really thought was hilarious and true. And that is, what's the worst that could happen is I die. I just think that's amazing. Because from that perspective, what matters anymore? It doesn't mean that things don't matter, right? This is a paradoxical message, what I'm sending, because it could be easily misconstrued like, we can swing this way, nothing matters, right? That's nihilism. And we can swing this way, grasping for everything, control. And right in the middle, where we balance out, that's humility. That's the place where, in the Toltec knowledge, we call that impeccability, where we are navigating the nuance of the very fine line in every moment. I'm doing it right now, right? As I'm speaking to you, I'm continuously straddling this line. I go a little this way, go a little this way, go a little this way, go a little this way. It's this constant course correction, just like a pilot flying an airplane. The airplane is always course correcting. Reminds me also of the trim tab concept, which is the tiny little thing on the end of a boat's rudder, which actually steers the whole ship. Or the little tiny 1 millimeter shift in the angle of a golf club as it's about to hit a ball, and that 1 millimeter shift causes a difference of 200 feet. This constant course correcting is impeccability, and we don't have the capacity for that if we're not tuned in to our arrogance, if we're not tuned into the fact that we have a tendency to want to hold on to worlds that don't actually exist and are not good for us and are not benevolent. And it takes a lot of humility, actually, to know our own will as benevolent. I really do believe it's a benevolent universe. And our will and thy will, right? God's will and the personal will. There's actually only one will, but it appears like there's not because of arrogance. And it's that arrogance that creates any possibility of us acting in a way that's malevolent, not benevolent. If we actually were humble, we could use our will, which is divine will acting through us. We can know our will as benevolent and divine, and we can make enormous decisions that it would appear a human can't actually make. We can get into that at a different time. That's basically that's what magic is. Magic is making decisions that change the probability of cosmic outcomes in the third attention. Read my book. I don't even know if that stuff is in the book. Third attention might not be in the book. I'm not sure. I'm going to wrap up and say I have a 5-day intensive retreat coming up in Utah, December 7th through 12th. So reach out if you would like to attend. I'm going to end this at 333 just to have fun with life.